Welcome back. Steps by the United States to impose visa restriction on Nigerian citizens suspected to have undermined democratic process during the general election is being received differently at different quarters. Some people see it as a welcome development, while others believe denial of visa by the U.S. may not on its own enthrone electoral stability in the West African country. News Central's Uzonna Onoye tells us more.
Utterances and acts inimical to peaceful electoral process is not new in Nigeria. The worst may be during the 1965 polls, which snowballed into the first military interruption of the country's young democracy in 1966. But the 2023 experience stands out negatively since the return of democracy in 1999, because politicians, through their words and actions, succeeded in pushing a sharp knife down the country's unity and left it in ethnic and religious pieces.
If you don't vote APC for a year, go your house. Nobody force you come here. Go out, so.
You vote APC! You vote APC! You vote APC!
Scenes like this played out in some parts of the country, and when these threats are carried out, they leave tears, sorrow, and blood in their trail. Reports say 109 people were killed in incidents surrounding the 2023 elections in Nigeria. The United States is not shy of defending democracy all over the world. She may not have completely conquered the ills that trail elections even in her own land, but to a large extent, it has overgrown those basics of denying people rights to choose. US says the steps to restrict entrance into the country is not targeting all Nigerians, but specifically, and I quote, those believed to be responsible or complicit in undermining democracy. These individuals have been involved in intimidation of voters through threats and physical violence, the manipulation of vote results, and other activities that undermine Nigeria's democratic process, end of quote. The press statement credited to the U.S. Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, did not name names or mention areas where the incidents took place. But those who follow elections in Nigeria will know the usual suspects: Lagos, Kogi, Kano, Rivers, and Kaduna. Enugu may be a new addition to this list after the last election. Nigerians will be waiting with bated breath in hope that names of individuals suspected of attempting to derail democracy in the country will be published. Will this list be made up of only those who were seen in viral videos threatening and intimidating fellow citizens? Will it accommodate those who, with their silence, embolden thugs to go up in arms against those perceived to have different political views? What will the U.S. say specifically about INEC officials accused of conspiring with politicians to manipulate vote results? But beyond all these questions is the concern that Nigerian politicians and their counterparts all over the continent have steadily put their selfish interest over the common good of the people and turned the continent to a global laughingstock. Uzonna Onoye, reporting for News Central.
The All Progressives Congress APC stakeholders from the North Central, including governors, governors-elect, and top lawmakers, have rejected the zoning arrangements by the All Progressives Congress APC regarding the leadership of the 10th National Assembly. Even though the APC National Chairman Abdullahi Adamu hinted last week that the zoning arrangement would be revisited after a series of protests by aggrieved aspirants, some party stakeholders have insisted on retention of the zoning arrangement.
Also, the national president of the Arewa Youth Consultative Forum, AYCF, Yerima Shatima, has rejected the choice of Godswill Akpabio as the next Senate president. Shatima, who disclosed this in a statement, noted that the Southeast can also produce a credible and competent Senate president and urged the APC to encourage national unity by reviewing Akpabio's nomination.
With just 27 days to the inauguration of the 10th National Assembly, all eyes are on the APC leadership to see which zone produces the next principal officers of the National Assembly. Joining us this morning to discuss this is political affairs and parliamentary analyst Fred Itwa. Good morning, Fred, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. Glad to be here.
All right, so many angles to this conversation: zoning, to zone or not to zone. We've seen a number of the APC members who have said they're against it. However, the governor of Kwara State has come out to say that the APC governors or members of the APC are quite in support of zoning. It's a lot of confusion to zone or not to zone. But what are your thoughts about the APC and the current internal drama that's going on as regards the choice of Senate President?
Okay, is the drama is necessary, and the different persons involved are expected to play the role. But the final truth that people unfortunately are not aware of is that on that very day, 13th of June, you have just 109 senators that will determine who becomes the next Senate president, his deputy, the speaker, and his deputy as well. So all the noise and the drama you've seen on that very day will not be necessary. Again, the governors who have turned themselves into a small cartel to determine who becomes what, who incidentally, when they want to appoint commissioners or anything, nobody tells them what to do. But the same governor would prefer to be the one to determine who becomes the president of the country, the leaders of National Assembly, and other layers of government. So it's quite funny. But the truth on that very day, if you are familiar with the Constitution, is that unless you are admitted into the chamber, nobody will be allowed in on the day of inauguration. And before lawmakers take their oath of office, they have to first elect presiding officers. And like I've said in several fora, APC does not have a commanding majority in the Senate to solely determine who becomes the next Senate president. APC has 59 senators elect. The opposition combined has about 50, which means on that very day, whoever is able to play a good game, spend more money, will probably have his way. Then the House of Reps, the opposition combined has more members elect. I need just 181 members in this House of Reps to amend the Speaker. So the issues are a bit dicey. And again, you also ask the people that have been endorsed, how popular are they within or among their colleagues? On that very day, when the chiefs are down, will they stick with their colleagues and ensure that they emerge? I also know that in the Senate, ditto for the House of Reps, they are going to likely absorb the secret ballot system, which means whoever you vote for, nobody will get to know. Your party chairman may be watching behind, but that day will determine who you vote for. And once a winner emerges, no matter your arguments, that will be relevant. But again, it's also important to state one thing, that unlike what happened in 2015 when Saraki and Kuremadu emerged, then Dogara and Lasso in the House of Reps emerged against the wish of the party, I don't think that may likely happen. Not because lawmakers will not be dependent or have a mind of their own, but because if you follow the trajectory of the president-elect, discover that he is not the type that will let things go easily. He may not have been talking, but rest assured that when he takes over office in a matter of days, about 13 days from now, things will be different. And the governors who have formed small cartel would have been out of office to determine who becomes what. So we still have some days, about 27 days before inauguration of the new assembly, for so many things to happen. So for me, we shouldn't be in a hurry, but just follow the trajectory, the drama, and watch as people spend money, allegedly bribes are given, and all the horse trading going on. It will be an interesting race, and one of the most interesting since '99 if we are allowed to see that day.
Well, Nigerians at this point, would always, I think in the last couple of years, would even ask what the value of who becomes Senate president is, with moving the country forward. We've also seen that the 9th National Assembly, to a large extent, many people described it as a rubber stamp National Assembly. They didn't seem to take the, views of the people or the interests of the people, seriously. Basically playing along with the executive, whatever the executive wanted. Do you think that these conversations, and the nominations of Godswill Akpabio, the arguments, are really just belittling the role of the 10th National Assembly and also setting precedents for Nigerians to see that this would not be a National Assembly that cares about the interests of the people?
Okay, well, there's no straight answer to that. For a start, people are not probably familiar with the workings of government may dismiss the relevance of the National Assembly, which for me is a mistake. If you want to know how important they are, just compare the 9th National Assembly and the 8th National Assembly. The 8th National Assembly, where Bukola Saraki was the Senate president, in a space of 4 years, the executive sent a loan request of about $30 billion. Out of that, the Assembly approved less than $4 billion of the entire loan request that was sent. Now, the current Assembly, led by Ahmad Lawan, it has approved $41 billion to the same administration, which the other one refused to approve. The same thing happened in several of the bills that were sent, one of which was the Water Resources Bill, which was very controversial, which would have ceded power to the federal government to control any waterways, no matter where they are located. When that bill came to the National Assembly, that's the 8th National Assembly headed by Saraki, for reasons which they felt were in the interest of Nigerians, refused to accept, give assent to that bill. And that was how that thing crashed. And Nigerians hated what he did. There were several other things that they did, a constitutional amendment that were done, all of that. And one more important thing that people need to know, we keep talking about unbundling government, talking about restructuring. That will never happen if you don't have an independent parliament that will initiate the process, carry House of Assembly along across the state for that process to happen. So the kind of parliament you have is as important as the executive, even more important than the executive. But if you have a pliant assembly that will be headed by somebody who was nominated by the executive, it is very likely that he will do their bidding and probably likely undermine the independence of the assembly. And I always say that by constitutional design, the National Assembly and the executive are kind of designed to be at loggerheads because of the issue of checks and balances. But it doesn't mean they have to always fight to undermine the interests of Nigerians. But for them to be on the same page, it is constitutionally impossible unless you want to amend the constitution and adopt a parliamentary system of government. But the system that we run, that will never happen. So those pushing for that to happen, if you want to know the results, just look at the current National Assembly headed by Ahmad Lawan, and that will give you an idea of what the 10th Assembly will look like if the same thing is allowed to go straight.
I mean, I'm glad that you mentioned this, because what we've seen a number of times will be attempts to see that the executive and the legislature, or the head of the legislature, are in some case maybe from the same party, because there is the assumption that when they are from the same party or they are united in ideals, it would help the furtherance of government, which you have clearly debunked. But the APC is looking to see that it heads the House, it heads the National Assembly. From what you've seen so far, what would you say are the APC's chances?
APC will have his way on that very day, but it may not be the candidate that it wants. In the House of Reps, the most popular candidate right now is Marco Betara, who is from Borno State, the same state with the Vice President-elect Shetima. Now, if you are to hold elections in the House of Representatives today, Betara will emerge as Speaker. But in the absence of Betara, the closest to be was a Deputy Speaker of the House. These are the two most popular people. Until recently, almost no one knew about the one endorsed by the APC, Abbas. He was a little known person, but suddenly he's in the limelight and it's popular. So, but the bottom line is that head or tail, APC will produce the next leaders. The only problem it may not be those that they want as leaders that will emerge. In the Senate, for instance, you have other strong contenders like Abdullahi Adamu, former governor of Zamfara State. You have Oji Zokalu. You have Ivo Shomole, first timer, who is sponsoring several media outings to make a strong case for himself. So if, for instance, all of these aspirants are able to pull out their structure and settle for one person among them, rest assured that Babdi will have a difficult time getting elected that very day. But the bottom line is, head or tail, like I said, APC will produce the next leaders of the National Assembly. In the House, opposition may have the upper hand, but it's a conglomerate of people from different platforms that have formed that part in the House. So obviously, he cannot produce any. But to determine who becomes the next speaker, notwithstanding.
Yeah, yeah, very interesting. I also want to know if you're one of those who is also not even excited about the names that you've mentioned, Abdulaziz Yari, Odjuz Okalu, Godswill Akpabio. Looking at people who, I mean, if you really are looking for a strong National Assembly, at any of these names, people that give you, some expectation that the 10th National Assembly will be useful to the Nigerian people. I saw an interview yesterday with Abdulaziz. Abdulaziz Yari was being questioned about, how he performed as governor. You could say pretty much the same thing with Odjuz Okalu and every other person who is attempting to be Senate president today. These are former governors. There's none of these names that excite Nigerians in any way. And I might be wrong.
No, you're not wrong. In a decent democracy, probably maybe none of them would have been considered. But because this is Nigeria, you probably have to settle for the best among the worst to hold a political office. Almost all the serious contenders, beside Senator Sani Musa from Niger State and Osita Nassau from Imo State, the rest of them are former governors. And in the Senate, known to many people, there's a small cartel, a body of former governors. If you add former governors and their deputies in this incoming Senate, you have almost about 30 of them out of 109. It's like a retirement home. And when it comes to money to spend in getting the ticket, in getting elected as Senate president, they still have the money to spend. So those who are the most qualified to lead the Senate, one, are not very popular. So they won't have the kind of money to spend to compromise their colleagues to get elected. So those who have the funds may not be the most suitable, but they are the ones with the large pocket to get themselves elected on that very day. That's the funny
irony. That's basically
the
story of almost every elective position in Nigeria, today.
Yes. So it's a far cry from what we want.
Yeah.
And if at the end of the day, any of them should emerge, the excitement will not be that much. It may also be a case of, okay, let's pray the call. One of them will be a former governor, and the president-elect is also a former governor. So at that level, the independence that we so much desire may not likely happen at the end of the day.
I'm going to, write on the back of the question that Osage asked and the comment, your response as well as the comment he said that, of course, this is usually the case in almost every election. It's not just with, with the National Assembly as, every arm of elections. Now, to maybe potentially combat this, the news, we have it today that the Senate on Tuesday directed the clerk of the National Assembly to transmit a constitution alteration bill number 58 to President Muhammadu Buhari for assent in line with the provisions of the Authentication Act. Now, this bill seeks to provide for independent candidacy in presidential, governorship, national and state assemblies and local government council elections. I wanted to find out what your thoughts were or what your thoughts are on this bill. It's do you think that this is something that would change the landscape of how politics and elections are being run in Nigeria?
It would change anything significantly. We are trying to tailor our model style toward that of the US. And if you check their parliaments and other arms of government, those independent candidates in those different arms, probably less than 1%. But it's a good start, and if it's well harnessed and you have popular candidates who also have the money to spend, they may likely win. But it's a step in the right direction. There were two bills that were transmitted yesterday. The first one being the one that you mentioned on independent candidates. The second one was to include presiding officers of the National Assembly as members of State Council. State Council that made up of former presidents and others listed by the Constitution. But with just barely 2 weeks to the end of the administration, I don't know if it's something the president will likely sign. But if he does that, it will be a big win. But again, let's go back to the not too young to run bill that was signed some years back, about 4 years ago, 5 years precisely. How many young people eventually relied on that bill or that law to win elections? It still boiled down to the issue of money. If you don't have money, no matter how lofty your political aspiration is, it will just be a tall order that may likely not work if you don't have the resources or someone to back you to run for elections. It's not just to bribe, that's very infinitesimal. You have to print posters, logistics, pay your agent, do all manner of things that for you to even win a seat to represent your constituency in the state house of assembly, the minimum amount you spend will not be less than 30 to 40 million naira. And the question is, how many people can afford that if you don't take a loan? It's a question that probably people will get to answer on their own.
All right, really heartbreaking. If we're being honest, looking at the seeming political future, that we're, for the next 4 years. But of course, people would also have arguments concerning the Muslim president, Muslim vice president, and then possibility of a Muslim Senate president. It's just down the line. Freddie, thank you very much for your time. Look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.